How old is your GPU? If you bought a used GPU, I'm not talking the day you bought it. When was it made? If your answer was 3 or more years old, you might be leaving free performance on the table because your GPU is cooking itself. If you don't know what I'm talking about, it's time to replace your GPU's thermal paste. But that sounds like a lot of effort, so to find out if it's worth it, I'm putting my own RX 6800 XT at risk in the name of performance and noise. And as a little disclaimer before we get started, what I'm about to show you is a general set of steps for how to replace your GPU's thermal paste. This is not a be-all end-all guide. Do your own research before doing this. Now with that out of the way, let's get to the repaste. Meet my main GPU, a used RX 6800 XT that I bought 4 years ago. To prepare for doing this, I looked up a video of a guy taking it apart on YouTube, and I want to know who hurt that GPU, because it must have sucked for the poor guy who had to fix it. What did they spill on it? After watching the video, it seems that all we have to do is just take off the back screws and attempt to pop the cooler off. And of course, when we're taking the screws off of the bracket right behind the GPU die, I'm being a little extra careful, taking them out of star patterns so we don't damage the die. And to pop the cooler off, it did require mild force. Your mileage may vary here. Just be careful so that way you don't rip out any fan connectors or tear any thermal pads taking off the cooler. As we can see, the thermal paste on both the die and the cooler is less than ideal and definitely needed to be changed. In order to remove and clean up the old thermal paste, I have a lovely bottle of 20-year-old Kmart isopropyl alcohol. It may not show up on camera, but it has been lovingly yellowed. That's how you know it's still good. I'm also just going to take a toothbrush and clean the dust off of the GPU while we're in here because I don't want to have to take it apart to do it again later. The dusting of the GPU is an optional step that could also be done with compressed air or an anti-static brush, but you don't have to do it at all if you don't really feel like it. Now with the thermal paste and dust removed from the GPU, we can put on more thermal paste. For today's flavor of thermal paste, we're using Arctic MX4, pretty standard, and if you'd like to buy a tube of it for yourself to use on your own GPU or CPU, I will have a link to it in the description. Now there are 1.5 million ways to put on thermal paste, and this is the way I felt like doing it today. If any of you say anything in the comments about it, I will cry. Normally, I would manually spread the thermal paste out before putting the cooler back on, given that it's direct die cooling. However, I didn't realize that the Arctic MX4 came with a spatula in the box for it, and I couldn't find one myself, so we're letting the cooler do it today. From here, it's basically the same steps we've already done, but backwards. Take extra special care when tightening the bracket around the GPU die, tighten in a star pattern so that way you don't risk cracking a die or having uneven thermal paste distribution. With the repaste done, we can put the GPU back into the system and it still turns on. But was the risk worth it? Running the Cyberpunk hand benchmark, we see a performance uplift of about 5.3%, and that doesn't even take into account the massive noise benefits we've gotten. This wasn't a loud GPU before, even under load, but with the repaste done, it is now dead silent. The GPU is also no longer cooking itself. And without it thermal throttling, that means we're seeing the GPU hit its max boost clocks that it's rated for, and that's why we're seeing such a performance uplift. But of course, before I can say if I recommend this, we do have to take into account the potential risk. If you're the kind of person who doesn't even like to take the side panel off your computer, this may be a little nerve-wracking for you. However, if you want to maximize the performance of your PC and don't mind taking a GPU apart, then go for it. By doing this, you're likely to see performance and noise improvements. Also, thermal paste is cheap and you might already have some. Worst case scenario, you go through the effort and find out the thermal paste installed by the factory wasn't that bad, but you still have a GPU with brand new thermal paste that will be good for years to come. And with the repair successfully done, that concludes our video today. If you've enjoyed this video, please consider leaving a like and subscribing as it helps more people find the channel, and random monthly tech videos are what I do here. Also, if you'd like me to try putting liquid metal onto a GPU, let me know in the comments, because that might be fun. Now I'm JaxonTheNerd, and I will see you all for the next one.